Welcome everyone to a casted game of Age of Empires 4, and today spawning in the southeast corner of the map playing in green. We've got Lash playing as the Byzantines, and his opponent on the northwest playing in pink. We've got Baloo, not the bear, just Baloo, playing as the Order of the Dragon. Welcome everyone to the Hidden Valley map for the Sultans Ascend DLC, featuring the two new civilizations of course, and well, Byzantines versus the Order of the Dragon. I'd say in many ways, many people would say that these are the two most underpowered civilizations in the new kind of patch and the new group of 6 civilizations that have come our way. But I don't know, like, played in certain ways, they can be pretty strong in different ways. Now, a lot of the civilizations bonuses do revolve around the cistern here for the Byzantines. Of course, the villagers, they do get their increased efficiency depending on the water level. Currently at water level 1, which is probably going to change pretty soon, because generally with the Byzantines and the way they've been... wait a minute, that's a heck of a great mining camp for Lash, I gotta say. Let's take a moment just to take that in. In any case, certainly the opening for the Byzantines is pretty standard, whether you go for 2 town centers, whether you go for 1 town center play, or, you know, generally you're trying to get the cisterns up pretty quickly. And I think it's actually a build that was coined by Maito early on. Obviously a lot of players jumped on it and made their own kind of... adaptations on it, and I do actually have my own adaptation as well. So if you guys are interested in build order tutorials, I do have a YouTube video on the Byzantines opening for the 3 cisterns in Dark Age. And from then, actually on that particular build order, we do go for the Hippodrome. So I'm interested to see what Lash does against the Order of the Dragon. I feel like it's a tricky one because the Byzantines can be very strong as an economy itself. But I think the Order of the Dragon, they're very slow to get going, right? And because they're so slow to get going, it feels like you kind of have to punish that. Like, you don't really want to let the Order Dragon boom away, because that's kind of the thing that they do. It feels like they can't do much else. Obviously, there can be aggression. There can be aggression coming out from the civilization, but the trouble is, by the time you get a unit out, it's like 6 minutes. They're so expensive. It's so hard to mass up units as the Order of the Dragon. And so it does feel like as Byzantines, you kind of want to pressurize that. You could try and match it up and try and go for the eco approach as well, but I don't know if you can compete, because the thing is, the Order of the Dragon, whilst the villagers do take longer to train, and they are more expensive, so they take 24 seconds to train rather than your usual 20, and they take 60 food rather than your usual 50. But they gather resources 25% faster, they build 20% faster. So with plenty of villagers, they can have a really strong economy. That's something the Byzantines will want to try and prevent today. And I think something to bear in mind as well, if you're actually playing Age of Empires for yourselves, that like the Order of the Dragon, whilst they are pretty simple to play in terms of mechanics, actually, like, in practice, it's actually kind of tricky, because their units are very different. I mean, the same names, like, they're still horsemen, they're still spearmen, they're still archers. But what really changes the way the game plays is the fact they're so tanky, they're so expensive, right? So if you lose a unit, it's kind of devastating, actually. It's actually a really bad thing if you lose a unit for the Order of the Dragon. You really feel it, because it's so expensive, and you just lost one of very few units that you have in the first place, because it's very difficult to mass up, and they take 2 population space as well, so it's tricky. But the Imperial Hippodrome is the landmark here for the Byzantines, looking to be aggressive early on, maybe some cavalry. It's going to be the Ark and Chapel for the Order of the Dragon. Now, I actually feel like, the thing about the Ark and Chapel, there's lots of things to talk about this, and I'd like to maybe get your opinions on it in the comment section below. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Twitch, even the Twitch chat, just let me know what you think. Like, I think the Ark and Chapel is, obviously, it's nowhere near as good as it is for the HRE. We see a lot of people going for the Minework Palace. It does give you obviously some really nice, unique upgrades, especially Zornhau. I think probably Zornhau is probably the best one out of them. The one that leads to the bleed effect. But yeah, Ark and Chapel still gives you a 10% buffer, right? So it's pretty strong. Like, when you factor in the extra 25% the villagers get anyway, like, it's not too terrible. I think it's a decent landmark. It just feels like a lot of pro players aren't particularly on it. Probably for good reason. They've probably done the number crunching and feel like actually they feel like the 10% isn't all that much, but I don't know, especially when they kind of struggle to get going in the first place. It feels like an extra bit of economy can help them pump out units a little bit quicker. In any case, it's going to be a first barracks coming out here for the Order of the Dragon, just to counteract the Imperial Hippodrome, which actually, by the way, I think is an incredibly strong landmark. I know the Grand Winery is pretty popular, especially late game. I think Grand Winery doesn't necessarily help you all that much in the early game. Like, it gets you a couple of mercenaries maybe a little bit earlier, but I think the time that Grand Winery really comes alive is like the late game, where you get loads of olive groves, and that's going to give you a lot more olive oil. Like, if you do go super late game and you don't have the Grand Winery, you're kind of kicking yourself. But the Imperial Hippodrome, even then, is still not a bad landmark, especially when you factor in the Triumph ability, increasing the damage by 25%, the cavalry movement speed by 10%, and health regeneration by 2%. It's really, really nice to have, especially if you're going to start raiding, because of course they get the Expilatores upgrade, where the horsemen get an additional +2 damage against villagers, but you also get 20 gold for each villager you kill, so early damage can really scale quite nicely. Speaking of which, there is a scout on hand there for Lash, just to see what's up and see what's happening, in case he wants to do some early damage. We do see a horseman already being built. Water level 3, by the way, which does mean that the villagers will be getting a good enhancement of 15% gathering extra, but also not only that, more importantly maybe in some ways, Conscriptio, getting that 60% production speed, and we see a horseman going out across the map already. Now the Imperial Hippodrome will also give you access to Numerai, which is going to be increasing the, the trample damage is going to be a lot better. And then the last one, Trapezites, Scouts, increasing the enhancing torch damage by nearby units by 25%. Now, I don't think we see this all that often, but I'm sure there's a nice cheese out there somewhere where you can just get a load of melee units and just control. I can imagine a late game situation, just getting all your units to torch down enemy landmarks, especially if you're going against like the Abbasids or the Ayyubids, just the town centre and the House of Wisdom to take care of. I'd love to see something like that. Like, obviously it's a very all-in play and kind of crazy strategy, but it could be something interesting to see. Bit of harassment there. Now, the dragon villages are built different, as we spoke about. 65 HP. And a single spearman is so strong, by the way. 180 HP. It's got more HP than a horseman. It's kind of crazy. But obviously, you have to pay a very big premium for that. Baloo. Gonna be getting it's not a cheap unit. Sheesh, 160 resources on that. Berry's almost but taken there for Lash. Horseman will chase down that scout, and I think actually Blue might lose a scout. Movement speed for the horseman just too much, and I'm afraid that scout will go down. He's getting some good vision though, detail. Bit of scouting, 5 villages on gold. Might be anticipating a fast castle coming out for the Byzantines behind this. Villagers coming out to build a stable. So actually the Order of the Dragon going pretty aggressive in the feudal age. It's going to go for the Castle Age himself, Regnant's Cathedral. It's actually a very common play here, by the way, fast castle for the Order of the Dragon. And the Byzantines actually might need to stake in their feudal age a little bit more, because they need to try and pressurize those relics and get as many of them as they can. Lash will not want those relics to fall in the hands of the Order of the Dragon for or at least too many of them. Couple of spearmen added into the mix for the Byzantines. Got to suck around the west side with the horsemen. But of course, not getting all that much value at this point. Now, there's something that's actually quite nice for this Order of the Dragon, is he does have pretty safe wood at this point, unless it gets dived on. One concern though for Baloo is that, well, he's kind of pegged in, right? Just the number of units here is so overwhelming. Yo, Core, thank you for the raid. I appreciate it, dude. Hope you had a good stream, man. I really appreciate it. We just had a good time, actually, at the start of this game. Order of the Dragon versus Byzantines. But thank you, Core. Much appreciated, my dude. Well, the Byzantines still at water level 3. No villages on stone, so one thing to bear in mind, by the way, the Byzantines do actually get some stone trickling in for each foundation they place in the buildings. Depending on how big the buildings are, you get more stone. The first prelate is out. Going to be defended by 2 spearmen. Which should be okay, by the way, on this west side, because it's only primarily horsemen. These horsemen cannot dive with these spearmen in play. So if he protects this well, he might actually get this one relic that he's probably been eyeing up for some time. Did get to the castle edge quite a while ago, just hasn't been able to pick up. Oh, that prelate does need to be careful. Now, on the other side of things, Lash may be opting for that castle age now, actually. We shall see. Because, well, food income's looking pretty decent. Maybe looking to kind of contest some of the relics. Quite a few units here on the right side. I do see the first Gilded Knight, by the way. This thing is so tanky. 400 HP, but it's got to be careful with this number of spearmen. I don't think even the Gilded Knight can take this. Well, there's something actually I should talk about the Order of the Dragon. Something I've seen Corvinus do pretty well is that generally you want to protect as many of these units as you can. Like, each unit you lose is so devastating that actually getting mass prelates could really help. Like, if you can heal up these units, it is so critical because you can't afford to lose them cheaply. So I think that actually getting some prelates here could be a nice option. I think in many ways, adding the value from the Rex Cathedral to be able to just produce those prelates is so strong. We'll be getting the first relic in. And Lash is going to need to be conscious of that, not letting his opponent get too many more. He's getting some units on the right side, but yeah, I mean, I think there needs to be explored a little bit more, really, because prelates with the, not only just for the healing, but also with the Inspired Warriors, I feel like for the Order of the Dragon can be a bit bonkers. I haven't seen it personally. I don't know if we'll see it today. I hope we do, but I mean, I'm looking to find a game where we see it because I think it can be really strong. Gives you kind of the Delhi vibes, you know, when you get mass scholars with Tower Elephants, because Tower Elephants are super tanky units. It's kind of the same sort of concept, right? The Order of the Dragon Cavalry, super high HP. I want to keep them alive for as long as possible. But yeah, I mean, I think Inspired Warriors could be a nice benefit for the Relic Cathedral. Yep, there was a time, I was just mentioning in the chat, there was a time where Delhi was just a bit, you know, there were lots of things. I think Delhi was one of the civilizations that bear the brunt of a lot of bugs and a lot of, like, quirks. Definitely at the early stages of Age of Empires 4. Certainly fun times, and the healing rate was just a little bit bonkers and just a little bit crazy. But those are good times. But yeah, I mean, I think even without bug, I think even with the intentional kind of balance, I think it could be strong for the Order of the Dragon. But we shall see. I mean, we shall see if that's something that the pros seem to think is a good thing as well. I mean, this is kind of a decent number of units now for Blue, I've got to say. I mean, I'm taking how many shots this archer's taking. It's going to survive, and but it's coming out to the wood line. Needs to be a bit careful, though, because he doesn't want to lose any of those villagers. Diving in a little bit quickly there with the spearman. The spearman going to try and chase down those knights if he can. Does back away. Just one knight there. Quite a few gilded spearmen do catch off a couple of those horsemen. Trying to get Wallow. Will he get it? I think he should get the kill. Yeah, he does get the kill, but only just calculated, I guess. I don't think he used the triumph ability, which he could have as well. In any case, good clean up there for the army. Lash going to be dealing out all sorts of damage. You've got to be careful with Baloo not to get overrun. He's losing some premium units. A new age does come in now for Baloo, for Lash rather, to get to that castle age. Baloo, of course, was already in that castle age. Going to keep that knight alive, and that's the important bit. Oh, villagers on gold, mining away. And he needs that gold, by the way. Baloo needs that gold desperately. He should be fine, though, because there's a knight on those archers. Archers have to back away for Lash. Well, they won't be able to get too far. Of course, movement speed for the knight will take care of that. And in any case, behind all this, Lash does get to that castle. He's going up with the Golden Horn Tower, going to give him some free mercenaries. Now, he did go for the English, well, no, so the Western mercenary contract. We'll give him access to the English Longbowman, also the Lance Connector, and also the Streltsy if it gets to that stage of the game. So just to let you guys know on YouTube that if you have been enjoying the content so far and you would like to see me live, I'm actually casting this one live, as you may have guessed, on Twitch. So maybe drop a follow and think about joining in next time. How's it going, Blue Dream Legend? Hope you're doing well. Yeah, he's going to pick up another relic, by the way. This is significant. Rex Cathedral, obviously very similar to what it is for the HRE, giving the extra gold. Already getting 159 gold per minute. So, yeah, you know, 160 effectively. But that's going to be 320 now with that second relic coming in. Really nice boosting of that economy for Baloo. Now, of course, Baloo will be behind on village count, but that's primarily because, of course, it just takes longer to train. Now, relic coming in from the south. Going to get that relic nice and quickly there. Third relic going to be coming in now for the Order of the Dragon. And that's maybe not something that Lash is going to be too happy about. It does make things a little bit difficult for him. Does have that water level 4 now, so going to be boosting up the villager gathering speed, but also the production. I've got to say, in terms of aggression for the Byzantines, they do have this sort of window, right? Because it's just like the system scales really well in terms of the economy, but also the production capabilities. So each production building will be working pretty fast at this point. Obviously, because of the conscripted, it could be 80% faster. So I wonder whether Lash is going to start pumping out, really commit to that castle age timing and try to dish out some damage. Now, Baloo going to be walling up on the west side, protecting this economy. This is actually really key, by the way. There's a lot of food on this map on this side. The boar and the deer in particular. Gets a couple of cataphracts, and they'll be able to trample their way through potentially. Now he's going to get that water level 5, which is going to be very nice. And that's going to be maxing out the cistern level. Going to be giving him a good 100% on the production speed of those buildings, but more importantly, in some ways, the gather speed of those villages by 25%. Their economy is going to be rocking and rolling, and, well, Baloo needs to be careful because the military numbers is kind of building up for Lash as well. It does have an outpost, which has been obviously boosted up and is going to get an emplacement as well, and it's going to be difficult to push on this side. One concern, though, for Baloo is whilst he does have a lot of food protected, the gold is a bit of a tricky situation on the right side, and that's where the relics come into play, right? He's got 3 relics already, which is giving him a lot of gold. 4th one coming in soon as well, possibly. Longbows heading out on the right side. Yeah, he's really starting to build up counterpacks, longbows, and a couple of spearmen too. Baloo needs to start massing up quickly because he might be overrun soon if he's not. He might be going for a fast Imperial age. Look at the food and gold income he has and how much he has in the bank. And it could be a big turning point in the game. It's not necessarily a bad choice, especially if he manages to get on a key resource, maybe on the wood here in the middle, or maybe, I mean, he can't really venture out on the right side at this point, but not without taking a fight. It's not necessarily something he's geared up towards, but I like this attention to detail, right? Healing up. I mean, it's kind of expected at this stage. He's not really under any sort of pressure at this level of gameplay, right? We're not talking about... These guys are high level, right? So you kind of expect them to be healing up the units. But I think it matters more for the Order of the Dragon, of course. It does have a relic inside the outpost as well. Nice attention to detail. Going to be increasing that damage output and the strength of it. But Lash, maybe he's looking to build up. He's going to get the first Cairo Siphon, so we are looking for that late castle age push. I think there's something that the Byzantines can do pretty well at this time. I think a lot of the civilisations that have come out with the new patch do have a good timing window for attacks, especially the Japanese and the Byzantines. Obviously, we're seeing the Byzantines today, and they're going to be pushing with the first Cairo Siphon. He's got to be careful not to leave it too unattended. Does back away. The Gilded Knights look to try and pounce on it, but doesn't want to get too close to the longbows. Longbow will start to focus on the units behind the firing, coming out there for the house, and I mean, he's got to deal with the outpost as well at some point. But the trouble is, with only one Cairo Siphon, I'm not so sure how strong this push will be. Like, you do need a lot of siege in the late castle age to make these pushes particularly beneficial, right? Because he needs to do some infrastructure damage. It won't be enough just to take out units, although he will be able to take out quite a few units at this rate. Longbows do need to be protected a little bit more by the counterfacts. Doesn't use a trample ability just yet. I think the counterfacts, I mean, just one of them, right? It's not going to be enough for the prelate. Okay, this is the thing we're talking about. The prelates are going to be changing this fight. It's going to be healing up the weak knights. He pulls away the weak knights, and that's absolutely huge. Like, each unit he keeps alive is so key. But the trouble is, the longbowman range is kind of stifling a little bit on the retreat. Tries to snipe off a couple of prelates. Does take out another knight. Actually, not a bad trade there in the end for Lash. Picking off those 2 knights at the end was absolutely huge. Might be able to get a 3rd. In the end, the Cairo Siphon going to be burning down that outpost. I'm not sure if that outpost will go down. Does have access to emergency repairs if he hasn't used it already. It looks like he... Oh, it's not influence. It's actually not within the influence, which is kind of rough. But the 3 knights going to chase us back. I think the 3 knights should win this, although he might lose a couple. It's a bit of a trade-off here. I'm not so sure about this. Longbow's going to try and snipe out one. He does get one on the retreat, and that's a bit... Like, it always feels really bad as the Order of the Dragon when you lose a unit on the retreat like that. And if there's a civilization that punishes it the most, it is in English. A couple of villages on the west side. We talked about how this was nice and secure. Well, actually, it's not going to be secure against this melee units because they're going to burn down those palisades pretty quickly. Now, Lash, though, wasn't able to do that much damage. Like, one Cairo Siphon took a house and a mining camp. After all, Baloo, he'll be happy with that. Like, he's got plenty of resources coming in. He's kept out on the village account. That's absolutely huge. He does have to migrate the units, the villagers there on the west side. But as you can see, healing up what he can. Don't forget, he does have inspired warriors as well, which will certainly help in a fight. The military unit's dealing 15% damage and getting an armor as well. When you factor in how much base damage these guys have anyway, it's kind of bonkers. Now, on the back of this, though, what do the Byzantines have in store for us? They do have a second town centre, so trying to scale that economy does have a lot of the grand, the olive groves. We did mention at the early stage of the cast that actually when you do get the late game with the Byzantines, it kind of feels a bit awkward if you don't have the Grand Winery, right? It kind of hurts a little bit. Kind of makes you start to regret those decisions, unless you had a lot of benefit from the Imperial Hippodrome. I think generally this map is tricky, the Imperial Hippodrome opening, because they're so far away, right? It's so difficult to actually get across the map and then do key damage. It almost feels like you kind of have to play the bit of a boom fest. I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of this map generally, but obviously I've only seen a handful of games in the context of things, so I don't know. We'll have to see how some of the other matchups do. But it's certainly a map that favors, I feel, the civilizations that have a strong late game, that boom up quite nicely. And now behind all of this blue, now they got to that castle, they've got those relics, 4 of them, which is going to set himself up really nicely for that gold income. He's going to get the Palace of Swabia as well, which is going to really escalate that economy. Now, the reason why I think this is actually a really bonkers landmark is, guys, if you thought the HRE Palace of Swabia was amazing, well, this is even better. I know what you're thinking, it's exactly the same, but just factor in raw numbers wise, this operates on the idea of boosting in percentages. And if you're boosting in percentages, you have to look at what it's boosting. And when you factor in what it's boosting, the dragon villages, they're built different, they take longer to train. So if you have a certain percentage increase in training time, you know, the longer because the villager takes longer to train, raw numbers wise, it actually reduces it by a larger amount. Same in terms of the cost. So factor that in consideration. If you guys thought the HRE Palace of Swabia was a bit oppressive, well, the Order of the Dragon's better. Kairos being built on the field, so Lash coming in with another push. And trouble for Lash is we're getting to this moment of the game where actually he has to make a decision. Does he try and push this to the super late game in the Imperial Age, or does he look to try and finish this off now? The trouble about trying to push this off now is that it does feel quite all in, especially when you factor in that it's going to take 1 or 2 bad fights that makes him lose the game if it happens. And the Order of the Dragon have the potential to do that. Isn't the Imperial Age going to get elite upgrades? Elite upgrades for the Order of the Dragon is nuts. Because of course their units are just tanky as it is, and you factor in they got elite status. It might be a bit difficult for Lash. Now he might be able to use the trample ability for those cataphracts to dive on the mangonel. And that might help protect his economy, his villages, what am I talking about? His military rather, his infantry. That's the key bit of detail. Like there's a lot of infantry here that's pretty exposed to the mangonels. Speaking about exposure, well, speaking about protecting that economy, he's got to protect this. It does lose a couple of villages there on the gold vein. You see the dead bodies remain. He's going to be chased away with a couple of the Limitane. That's not going to be enough. He's going to need to get reinforcements here, Lash. He's going to be made to pay for that otherwise. On the north side, getting pushing with a couple of longbows and those cataphracts, trying to burn those outposts down, but it's going to take some time with only 1 Kairos Siphon. Mangonel does deploy. I think cataphract's got to dive on that. He's got to use the trample damage. He's got to get on top of that Mangonel if he can. He can't. The spearman brace inside, and that Mangonel going to stay alive, and does take out the spearman in the end. A couple of dragon archers are still alive. Does use the trample damage in the end. Oh, he doesn't take it out in the end. Goes for the prelates first. Actually, nice bit of pressure here. And he should be able to kill out a lot of these units. Does have the Mangonel still alive. Gonna get there in terms of the Limitane poking them pod. He does take a shot there in the end. The longbows stay alive for now, but the trouble is he's fighting underneath the town centre. And I don't think it's a sustained push. Like, he doesn't have the siege to back this up. And the outpost is still alive. And that's not looking great for Lash. Like, he lost a lot. I mean, sure, it caused a bit of idle time. I think the really tough spot for Lash is doing critical damage, especially when you factor in the Palace of Swabia is in play here. I mean, how do you deal with this? That's the real question, because it feels like a very difficult situation. I think certainly one thing he's going to need to do is drop some more olive groves, because he's really struggling on the food count. And it's kind of holding a bit too much wood. It's going to wall up. Yeah, okay, now he's going to go for that super late game, right? It feels like he doesn't really have an option at this point. The real problem for him is he doesn't have much of a standing army anymore. Or at least he didn't have what he could have. And this is a tricky situation. He's going to get stone walls, which will buy him some time. But the question is, would it be enough? Or will Baloo push on? I feel like the bigger consideration and concern for Lash is that it's the relic situation, right? If it gets to the super late game, the Byzantines can be really strong with the olive oil. Like, they can replace their gold needs in many ways, for the siege at least, with the Imperial Age landmark. But the trouble is, you know, when you're kind of relying on your opponent not having access to gold to make that competitive edge. Oh no, he breaks through. That wasn't built up too well, and now he's going to lose a couple of villages. Those knights are diving in with the spearmen in behind, and these are dragon units with the archers in behind. He's got one of everything. It's going to be difficult here for Lash to hold this back. He's going to get a couple of villages, maybe just to re-wall that up, but there's units flooding in, and this is going to be devastating. Might even lose that siege engine. The spearman might brace against that. Limitane gonna push away those gilded knights, but Baloo, he's smelling blood. He feels like, hey, hang on a minute. You try to push me, but you didn't manage to. Now it's my turn. Gets a couple of lands connected, which if they can get into the melee fight, could do some damage. But they've got to get close. The Gilded Archers will have something to say about that. Yeah, as I was saying, like, if you have access to the olive oil and this kind of, I guess, gold alternative in many ways to get, if you want to get siege. The trouble is it kind of is dependent on your opponent not having access to gold themselves. He's got 4 relics. There's a third town centre for Lash to trying to keep up on the villager boom that's going to be coming out of the Palace of Swabia. It won't be enough, but he's going to keep up as much as he can at least. Order of the Dragon going to go around to the south east kind of access point, and well, it's going to be difficult here for Lash. He's got to hold on for as long as he can. Getting the sacred site. Oh, at least he was teasing it. Villager does go down. Do you know what's really rough as well? Like, it's super rough if you build this wall and you get all that stone investment and it literally does nothing for you. Only because of that one tile. It's actually really rough when you think about it. Although, Baloo's actually heading back and he doesn't want to push in just yet. Oh, we've got a couple of Gilded Knights just riding around. It's got to be careful. I was going to give the attack notification, so Lash might pull out of here. He should. Well, to be honest, I think Baloo doesn't see it, right? The vision for the Knights is really terrible. Oh, he just needs to check that. I think he will. Oh, he sees it now. Or at least if he's looking... Oh, no, he doesn't. He rides past. That's a big missed opportunity. And he's going to be pushed away. Well, Lash spotted it. And he managed to get away with one there, I got to say. But yeah, keeping him open here is so rough for Lash, I got to say. He's going to be walling up on the west side as well. Stone walls. But essentially, the aggression is coming on the east. Now, one good thing about Lash's situation is that he's not so dependent on gold necessarily, but he does have a lot of stone on the west side. So he might be able to get a couple of keeps just to help him defend. He's got a bit of stone in the bank, but not nearly enough for a keep just yet. Behind this, Baloo is getting a lot of resources. I wonder what he's planning here. It's got almost reaching population capacity. Well, we hear some gunpowder units. A dragon hand cannoneer, which is absolute beefcake. Look at that. 250 HP, 38 range damage. Yeesh. Now, at this rate, it feels like both players might even chop through the middle. Baloo's prepared. He's got his stone walls up and running already. Surprised to see that... Oh, yeah, he's getting the sacred site. I was just to say, I was a bit surprised not to see them get the sacred sites, but Baloo's getting the one on the east side. He should be able to get the one in the middle. It does have a gate in the end. And there is the foreign engineering company coming out for Lash. A nice military unit for the Byzantines that will give him access to the Hui Hui Pow, the nest of bees, and also the royal cannons. And he can fund it using olive oil. But it does feel rough, right? Not having the Grand Winery at this point. The extra 60% bonus would be nice about now, but a couple of crossbows on the west side will be cleaned up. I wonder what the game plan is for Baloo. Now, one thing you kind of consider is when you're up against civilization like the Byzantines and you feel like you're confident your eco is stronger, you can start to put a lot of multiple production buildings, just kind of push your way through with the units, bang your head against the stone walls, and then go straight on through. Army that you lose, you just reproduce. The trouble is, the ability to do that with the Order of the Dragon is a lot more limited, right? These units take double the population space. So I think as the Order of the Dragon, one thing you have to consider as well, if you're pushing, like, again, you have to think about snowball effects. There's a couple of civilizations that have a lot of snowball mechanics in them. Like, the English is definitely one of them. You know, and the English has always been one of them. I think that the Japanese can be one of them with the ability to reproduce units very quickly. I think the Order of the Dragon are one of them as well. And it's more about the units and how precious they are. If you lose them, it's a big deal. It's hard to get them back in mass numbers, and you don't have many of them anyway. And so if you lose this army, there's one condition that Lash can possibly take it and leverage here. But it's got to be strategic, and it's got to be positional. Not necessarily economical, because he's really lacking on gold. But if he can clear out this army and then sustain a push behind it, it could be a way to win the game. If he can get on top of production that the Order of the Dragon may have, that's one potential comeback mechanic. But it's going to be challenging because it doesn't seem like Baloo is in any way, shape or form looking to throw a game like that. He's got plenty of resources in the bank. So as long as he's got production buildings, he'll be able to replenish the army pretty quickly. Especially the premium nature of this army is looking dangerous. 3 prelates going to be boosting up and getting a cover in just as the anti-siege. And going to be able to torch things down as well pretty quickly. It doesn't have any emplacements inside this outpost either, Lash, so that will go down pretty quickly, although if it doesn't go down, it'll be on most of it. Most of the health would have gone down. There's quite a few lance connector. I like the addition of the lance connector, by the way, for Lash, because it means that it gives the pressurized situation for the Order of the Dragon. Like, if he engages, he has to make sure he wins it. And I think Lash is playing this really well, actually. Considering the fact that we talked about the mechanic here to win the game is potentially to overswarm on your opponent and just kill out his army and then push on really quickly from then before he can replenish his army. The lance connector, probably a good unit for dealing with that damage, especially with the infantry nature and how it's going to be a melee mosh pit. Although getting trapped in the choke point like that is not ideal, but does have ranged units, right? The crossbows will be getting some good damage output. But ultimately, Blue buying time, right? He'll be okay for now. Heading further forward, does have a cataphracts or two now, Lash, but there's a lot of spearmen there for Blue. But you see the numbers here, 58 military population. It's a bit rough. Lash has got a good food economy. Not so great on the gold, but don't forget, he's not as dependent on the gold as the Order of the Dragon is. He can use that sweet, sweet olive oil. Oh, kills a prelate in the southeast, and well, he's going to have to move over to the gold vein. This is a nice picking, because don't forget these villages. I mean, that's the other thing. Like, raiding the Order of the Dragon to death, it's like the HRE. It's kind of like, you know, is that really a thing? Like, the Palace of Swabia, you have to really raid them, like, super, super hard. I mean, if you lost these villages, would it be the end of the world? Probably not. 10 of them. Wouldn't be ideal, of course, but with the amount of food banked up, it won't be too hard stretched to reproduce those villages. Also, Blue's going to be looking to push on the left side this time, and like I said, the overwhelming infantry basis of the Byzantine army now does make things a bit tricky. Doesn't have that mobility, can't just switch over to the other side of the map. Gives you vibes of the pit, in many ways, the old map in Age of Empires 4, which we don't see all that much of anymore. Looking to engage. He's going to need to take care of the Mangonel if he can, but can't really get close. This is a bit of a tricky situation for Lash. Lash has got to get on top of the Mangonel if he can. That could dish out a lot of damage on the crossbows. Gets the shot off, but good micro there by Lash, just dodging the shot. And well, who said you can't dodge the Mangonels? You can. But take a look at the damage output coming in. The prelate's really helping. The spearmen going to chase, and they're just going to make sure they kind of tank as much as possible. The hand cannoneers behind them, and I think he'll be fine now. The concern is the man-at-arms in good numbers on the left side. Take a look at this. The Gilded Knights riding into the heart of the Byzantine economy. Now it's going to kill a lot of villages. This is tough. Like, this doesn't seem like a lot, only 4 units, but he's basically one-shotting these villages. One swiping, or 2 swiping them, to be fair. But that's going to be dropping the village count significantly. And don't forget, Lash doesn't have that bounce back ability that the Order of the Dragon do. Like, the Order of the Dragon had Palace of Swabia. I guess Lash does have 3 town centers, which certainly helps. But he needs to... I mean, the thing is more about the idle time being caused now as well. There's a lot of the eco being idled. Oh, bit of engagement on the front line. 2 Mangonels now for Baloo. And now he's going to push this back. Lash can't take this engagement. Not without anti-siege. Not without a wave dealing against those Mangonels. Those Mangonels looking scary. Has to back away. Lash on the defensive now. Well, Knights are diving in pretty heavily on that town centre. 7 only slots garrison ball, I'm afraid, on that second town centre. Nautilus, thank you for the raid. I really appreciate it. Hope you had a good stream, my dude. Thank you. Very, very kind of you. Well, these Knights actually still getting huge value. They're still alive, and as you can see, the town centre fire barely tickling them. On the east side. Well, yeah, I mean, Lash has to back away. This is becoming incredibly difficult for Lash. Like, how does he go and deal with this? Maybe it's going to need more siege, right? Might need to get some cannons. Now, the cannons do have a bit of splash damage. That could possibly help him. But it's going to be rough without a clear-cut answer here. But thank you once again, Nautilus, for the raid. I appreciate it. Very kind of you. Does have access to gold though in the north, and I think one consideration is that sure that Baloo has 4 relics, which is definitely an incredible amount of relics coming out, gold coming in. But if you can starve him off the other extra gold on the map here, that could be a way, although this could be an issue because there are a couple of rams and there are only units here for the Order of the Dragon, which there are. Those villagers won't just be simply torching that down. They try to. They might be pushed back quite quickly. Gonna try to. Well, the army there gonna... I mean, he can just torch this down, right? There's no boiling oil. I mean, even if there was, boiling oil isn't what it used to be, and those villages will go down for Lash. Down to 78 population in terms of villagers, and I know a lot of people are saying the Order of the Dragon are a bit underpowered, but I don't know. They don't look too terrible today. Balu's played this well, though. Lash does have the Byzantines, which kind of struggle in this situation, I guess. He's getting a keep now to protect that area, and gold will be secure. As I said, that Lash was in a good spot in some ways, protecting that gold. Within 2 minutes, he loses it, which is super unfortunate. And now it means that, well, with the farming transition, it being what it is, take a look at the food coming in. 2,800 food per minute for the Order of the Dragon. And I gotta say, we might have sort of 1 or 2 big fights that might decide the outcome of this match, but yeah, I mean, thinking about them, how it turns out, it's difficult to find a solution for Lash. There's still potential, though, with the olive oil being spent. Heading northwards once more. I mean, I guess one option and one possibility is going mass cataphracts. Mass cataphracts can actually do pretty decent, even against the Gilded Knights. But you will have to use a trample damage. Like, in a straight fight, by the way. So if you guys don't know, I've been working on a versus series where I just pit certain units versus others. So the cataphracts, they actually trade okay against the Gilded Knights. The Gilded Knights actually win, like, equal resources until you use trample. If you use a trample damage, actually the cataphracts win. So that's going to be a bit of detail. When you factor in, there's quite a few of the Gilded Spearmen, which is kind of a problem. Especially when you factor in the Dragon Archers. It's a big fight in the middle of the game. And, well, actually, the thing is, the situation, the numbers looking good for Lash. I mean, that front line is holding firmly there for Balu. Does have an SDBs as well, which has got to be careful here. Balu is going to head back home and try and reset and heal up those units once again. Alright, well. He's going to take down that ram, and from then on, Lash might feel like he's in a good spot to push on from here. I like this bit of detail, though, for Balu, just to get a town centre here on this keep. Because ultimately, he wants to get access to the emergency repairs, right? He's always conscious that he might lose that keep or might be pressurized. So he's planning for the future. Looking to get the sacred site, make sure it's safe and secure on the west side here, Lash. And will we head into a situation where both players chop through the middle? In fact, they already almost have. I mean, they kind of have, right? Oh, sends a horseman there on the east side, but obviously with the keep now in place, and it's not going to be a position easy to push, right? I feel like Lash is focusing on that. Probably rightly so, because that's the main access to gold, right? And it's kind of a situation. Pretty much full upgrades for most players, but a couple of eco upgrades missing. Other than that, full blacksmith upgrades. Ram coming on the east. It's already open. Might as well put him to good use. Gilded Knight riding in, mostly for scouting information more than anything. Somehow manages to relay the information back to the Order of the Dragon despite losing his life. Getting an outpost for some vision. Nesta Bees deploys and that ram will go down. Alright, well, both players pretty much at population capacity. This is where things become interesting. We're probably expecting a big fight. Gonna head on with a couple of Gilded Spearmen. Look at that bank of resources, though, for the Order of the Dragon. That's looking a little bit crazy. We do see the elite horsemen dive in against the Gilded Spearmen. They're not going to survive for very long. Now he's heading in with the ranged units. Now, these units won't survive for too long either, especially if they get surrounded. But the key bit of detail is that it's kind of forcing Lash back home, which is what Balu kind of wants at this stage. Heading in from the west side as well. Has broken through, and nothing coming in the way of military units just yet. But he's diving in a little bit. Might cause a bit of eco damage. Now, these are elite man-at-arms, by the way. They got 408 HP. He's gaining momentum on the east side. He's pushing with his siege as well. Mangonel. We'll love to see a couple of trebuchets. Predate's going to be helping to heal up units that do get weakened. But Lash is having to stay home. Just a couple of units. It doesn't seem much, but when they get on top of units, built villages, they do melt very quickly. Well, at this point, Lash has stabilized a little bit. The real question is how does it push us back from now? Because like there's a lot of villages there on gold going down, and whilst he has collected a lot off the map, that bank of resources aren't going to last him forever. Comparatively, the Order of the Dragon just have so much more. Picks up a relic. Probably going to be going back home with that. Oh, hand cannon is back at home, trying to take care of the man-at-arms, but damage has been dealt. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, Baloo's killed 87 villagers, and that's rising in number. We could see an engagement here. The horsemen have to back away. There's just too many hand cannoneers from the Byzantines. A couple of lance connectors as well mixed in, and those horsemen trying to get raiding value, and they probably will, to be honest. Again, the heavy infantry-based army for the Byzantines, very difficult to mobilize, very difficult to cut off the raids, and we talked about the difficulty of raiding the Order of the Dragon to death. Well, the Byzantines, they're a little bit easier. Slow and steady wins the race. Byzantines heading further forward again. Well, Gilded Horseman going to be coming on top of the olive groves. Might get a couple of kills here. There aren't that many green units there in terms of... Well, okay, maybe not. It's going straight into the lance connector and hand cannoneers. That's not really what you want. You can take the engagement, but again, even the Gilded status won't help him in that fight there necessarily. Not to win it, at least. Going to come in on the east. This is the big fight we're expecting. Wee Power, Nesta Bees, and 2 Springles engaging, but I don't think the Order of the Dragon have enough here. Lash actually quite heavy in numbers and military, 100 in total. Does have a weaker economy. It feels like Lash, of course, he needs to be the aggressor in here, right? Because he can't keep replacing this army, at least not as well as the Baloo, the bear, can. Trouble for Lash. He's got to get rid of that keep. Does have the Wee Powers. Got to be careful not to lose it. Got to keep it well protected. It's an expensive unit. Alright, it's going to take down that keep. But I think it has emergency repairs, right? So it'll take him doubly long. It does have the relic garrison inside. I love that little bit of detail, by the way. He actually must have moved that at some point using a prelate. On the west side, going to be burning down the stone walls with the Cairo siphon. But it's coming out to repair. It will take a lot of time to get through that. I think it's probably got architecture at this point. Increasing the HP of those walls. And although Wee Power is working along, but I think one Wee Power just won't be enough. Probably won't be able to dish out enough damage to overweigh the emergency repairs. Oh, he's trading. Alright, well, Lash wants some gold income, and he will get olive oil as well, by the way. So set up trade quite nicely. Let's just see how much he's getting there at some point. 71 gold and 23 olive oil. Not too shabby. This could go either way. Like, I think there was a period of window here where the Order of the Dragon had a lot of advantage when he was the Imperial Age and Lash was in the Castle Age, and he kind of won a big fight. Like, there was a big push there that Lash tried in the Castle Age when he was in Castle Age. Didn't quite work, and Baloo didn't really be that aggressive after that. It's kind of prolonged the game out a little bit, but maybe he feels confident about his late game capabilities. We'll have to see, because it seems like we're heading that direction, especially when you factor in trade. But 2 cover and snipe out the 2 Springles. Nice bit of micro there just to make sure that they won't both focus firing on one. Takes out the Nesta Bees next, and then the horsemen are going to dive on that, but he's got to be careful. There's a decent number of spearmen and those hand cannoneers as well for Lash, and the Byzantines have the longbowmen firing off on the retreat. And there is the Limitane, I should say, actually. The spearmen, the Limitane, they do brace against the horsemen. The horsemen trying to ride through. They do get through, but the hand cannon is going to pick off a lot of them. I'm not sure Baloo has enough, although these guys are built different. They do seem to be managing to hold their own, and actually they're getting a good surround on these units. I think the fact that he's getting a good surround is a big deal. It means that retreat is almost impossible here for Lash. He doesn't have enough. Has a couple of Streltsy mixed in, and that could be a really nice strong late game unit if they survive, but he needs to build up numbers. And he's losing numbers. He takes out the horsemen in the end. A couple of dragon archers. They will dish out some damage against the Streltsy if they can get close enough, but he's trying to regroup and rebuild. Does have 2 culverins. It's a bit of a dicey fight here. I think Lash should possibly come out on top, but the thing is, you're the dragon. They can replace this army easily. Lash is struggling out of gold. He doesn't have that much olive oil either, and it feels like almost just the case that the Byzantines might struggle. If they lose the premium units, he can't replace them. The Order of the Dragon, he can replace them for days. He's going to move further forward. And yeah, this is a problem for Lash. I think this is what Blue was opting to do, waiting for, making sure they had a stronger economy. He knew that if it turned out into a big fight, melee mosh pit, head-banging fight, he would win. Just purely because of the better eco. It looks like he's taking advantage of that. Trying to get a keep up here is Lash. He deletes it. He just can't do it. And he's going to lose villages as well. Now, Blue, I think he... Did he delete villages? It almost felt like he deleted villages, actually. In any case, they keep going to go up to trying to defend the trade. But if the trade goes down, that gold income's going to be negligible. And he's losing units here. Lash down to 65 military. They can't get fast enough out there. And even if they do, it's kind of trickling out. And he's killing lots of villages. Oh, that's bad here for Lash. 108 villages lost so far. He won't get the keep up. That is significant. Like, if you got the keep up, at least there's a way to find a way to defend this position. But without the keep, it changes everything. He's trying to get the keep up on the south side with those villages, but they're going to be picked apart by the horsemen. That is not ideal. He's going to have to send more villagers, but he's lost so many already. Could this be the tap out? Could possibly be, with that keep not going up. And the Order Dragon coming in with 2 culverins. And the infantry, man-at-arms, and a couple of landscapes, I think, there with the spearmen heading in too. They're trying to get another keep on the east side. Wait, that's the Order of the Dragon keep. He's sending villagers. And why not? He's going to keep that keep, stop it from being built. Traders going to try and make their way through, but it's starting to be overrun. And this is a problem here for Lash. A couple of culverins going to be sniping out some of the traders possibly. Doesn't necessarily rely on taking the traders. If he takes out the military, those traders will fall down next. Villagers coming out here for Lash. He's trying to commit, but he knows he can't get the keep up. But with that, he knows he can't stay in the game. Blue, the bear, takes the game on Hidden Valley with the Order of the Dragon. They're looking strong late game. Hope you guys enjoyed this casted game on YouTube. If you did, do give the video a thumbs up. Take care, and see you next time.